in this 10-minute video, I'm going to talk about the topic of whether you ought to start your own business or whether you ought to buy a business. And let me say at the beginning that the government's working hard to create jobs. And boy, I'll tell you, if you find yourself sitting home waiting for the telephone call or waiting for the mail, you got real problems because you don't want to be counting on the government to do anything, least of all create a job. That's why I'm proposing you think about building a home-based business. I'm not talking about some Silicon Valley hotshot big deal. I'm talking about a home-based business that most people who are in their mid-career could start or finance. 3/4 of the time, on average, you're better off starting your own business from scratch. But about 1/4 of the time, you can probably buy a business and get a better running start. When I started the CEO clubs in 1977, I said, it's okay to be independent, but there's no reason to be alone. And that's kind of the first message about getting to be part of a group. Problem with looking to buy a business or even to start a business is your own universe of friends is typically relatively small. Certainly compared to someone like a big deal venture capitalist who has a huge base of friends in business and who has an automatic deal flow. And what you want to do is you want to get out and join groups that can give you a greater deal flow, greater contact. And some of those groups are trade associations, Service Corps of Retired Executives, chambers of commerce. Most schools in the area have small business development centers or have even chief executive clubs. You really don't want to get involved with my level of group, the CEO club's average company. And our group's about 20 million in sales. You want to get in something like the Young Entrepreneur Association, where people like yourselves are there and where you can build a cadre of friends, because either buying or starting a business, you want to have a group activity so that you can have colleagues to sound ideas, someone who could help you. And when you go meet bank trustees or when you meet printers or real estate agents or whoever it is you're building a relationship with, think about the fact that just giving them a business card seldom has a major impact. I had a member come with me on one of our China trips who used this pen as a business card. Cost him $0.25. And the business card might cost a nickel, but this cost $0.25. But it has the feature that if you use it as a pen, you can write, but if you use it as a flashlight, you can read a menu. And it's the kind of device that you don't give away. And then on the pen, he wrote his name, his address, and his website. And then in addition, he wrote, I want to buy a business. And keep in mind our pen, I'm going to keep it on for you to give you good remembrance of making yourself memorable to the audience that you're building a deal flow with. Because if this person you've seen and met is possibly a deal flow candidate, give you opportunities, it could be that at the next 3 months he doesn't have just what you need. But in the 13th month he might have. He might forget who you are. But maybe, luckily, he didn't throw away your pen. Now, where do you get good business opportunities to buy in an unusual way? I like to see you go down to the bankruptcy court, and I like to see you read the list. Now, you can get the bankruptcy data online as well, but I like to see you to physically go to the court and give some of the people that you meet your pen. And the pen would say, you know, I want to buy a business, and you'd hand it out to some of the lawyers, some of the companies, some of the court clerks, and you'll be surprised that someone else's problem could well become your opportunity, just the same as when you visit trade shows or when you visit small business administration meetings, Service Corps of Retired Executives. Anywhere you go, have a calling card that people will know you're interested in buying or starting your own business. In fact, when I started the CEO clubs, I again said it's okay to be independent, but no reason to be alone. And we put together and still have little groups of 12 CEOs who work together to help one another. In fact, I have a group that I call my super PAC, who been together 25 years. There's about 20 members in that group. And I called it a PAC, a PAC. And I never knew the term was more commonly thought of as a political action committee. I really thought of it as a wolf pack, because a lone wolf alone will starve, but a pack of wolves can bring down a big bear. So our groups have always been called packs. Anyway, there are four books that I'd like you to look at that I have and that I wrote. One was on franchising. One you're going to see right here, and it's called The Mid-Career Entrepreneur, kind of geared for people at Lehman Brothers or Bear Stearns, or a teacher who lost his job or her job, or a fireman. And the other is How to Start, Finance, and Manage Your Own Small Business. And most of the problems in locating and determining what to do in the business are lost on the fact that you can't immediately find the good deal. And so what happens, you get anxious and you wait 6 months, and so you sort of take the best deal you saw in 6 months, whereas you're really often better to wait longer. Let me give you a couple of negotiating tips that you'll find useful in negotiating for a business. First of all, don't, whatever you do, negotiate to make the purchase yourself, even if you're the primary buyer. Always use a third party as your negotiator. They'll do better than you, and you're going to need an ongoing relationship with whoever you're buying the business from, and you don't want to have any bad guy feelings. So always use a third party. And second, be careful not to mention price first. You know, you're looking at a business and you say, I offer you $1 million for the company. Well, right away, you have set by stating the first price, you have set parameters about how much that business will be sold for. It'll be sold for somewhere between $750,000 and $1 million. And so you've set the parameters. Let the other person who speaks and you're dealing with set the price first. When you're examining a business and doing due diligence, two very useful ideas that I find. It's not talking to the current customers and talking to the current staff about what goes on in the business that's real helpful. It's really talking to the former accountant, the former CFO, the customers who left. Those are the people who give you better insight into the value of the company. And second, when you're looking through and doing due diligence on the financials, the bank will produce a written document of all the checks and the numbers. But oftentimes that's not sufficient. What you really need is copies of the canceled checks. And reason for that is on the back of every canceled check is where that check was deposited. And you see to yourself, you're sending a check to someone in Colorado, but he's depositing it to a bank account in Maine. Something could be different that you want to investigate there. Or you'll see a check made out to Joe Blow's supply house and Tom Smith's supply house, and they're going into the same bank account. You'll want to look at the back of the checks, as well as the bank printout of all the checks, to get a best feel. Now, I want you to give the most important element about either starting or buying a business attention. Because in geometry and mathematics, they have a principle called both the most important ingredient when you're starting or buying a business. It's both necessary and sufficient. What ingredient is it that you have to have that's both necessary and sufficient to either buying or starting a business? With that one ingredient, you've got a business. And I'm going to give you some hints. It's not passion. It's not money. It's not desire. And it's not persistence. The one single ingredient you got to concentrate on in buying or starting your own business is the customer. Customer is king. When someone says, I'll buy that, you create a business. And so always remember, that's the most single important element. In my book, How to Start, Finance, and Manage Your Own Small Business, I give profiles of people who are successful in starting and managing a business. And I want to mention that my view of the best writer in the business of business writing was a gentleman named Peter Drucker. And if you haven't read any of Peter Drucker's classic management literature going back, do, because I think he historically wrote the best stuff and will give you a hand in running a business operationally. I'm also proud to say that in his book on entrepreneurship, he did mention some of my works. He's passed on long ago, but in management literature, he has always been the guru of management thinking. So I've given you a couple tips. I want to look at my little notes that I made and see if there's anything I left out that's real important. Well, no, good. I think I carried all the key points, and I want to wish you good luck in starting, financing, and managing your own small business.